Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday, the 21st of May, 2022. This week was an amazing week. On Thursday, I opened up the Sight for White One Wish campaign. The campaign is designed to allow members to come to us with their wish. This is something that they feel they are not able to do due to their sight. So I've always wanted to fly a plane, and obviously they're not going to just let me jump into a plane and fly it. So on Thursday, I attended Farnborough Airport and I had a flying lesson with a one-to-one instructor and I flew the plane. It was so exciting. Can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. My instructor, Mike, obviously took the plane off. Few too many objects to hit on the ground. But once we were airborne, he let me take full control of the plane. Everything was just amazing. It really was. I very much hope that as we develop our One Wish campaign, people do come forward and tell us what their wish is so we can try and fulfill them. We've already got people coming forward to drive a car, have makeup lessons, have hairstyling lessons, things that they just can't do or haven't learned to do due to their sight. Just to mention, as we came into land, he said, "Would you like to try and land it?" And I said, "Yeah, great. Where do I aim for?" And he said, "The runway." And I think when I said what runway, it was enough to take back control of the plane and we landed safely. Wishing everybody a good weekend and looking forward to those with children for half-term break. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Sight for White.
New scam warnings issued for Isle of Wight from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. New scams have been reported for the Isle of Wight this week. Trading Standards has reported that islanders have been hit by fraudsters attempting to trick them into parting with money through social media and with home visits. WhatsApp scam. There are reports of a WhatsApp scam where the scammer purports to be a relative who had lost their phone and says they are using a replacement, hence a different number. They will then proceed to tell you a story about why they need you to send money or pay for something on their behalf, as they can't access their online banking. Scammers are now using text messaging to carry out a similar scam. If you receive this type of message from a loved one, don't send any money. Contact them using a different method and confirm that they are safe and not in need of any cash. Attic scam. Reports this week about companies offering to survey your attic to see if you have damp. They will then show you pictures or meter readings showing high damp levels to scare you into either removing any foam insulation you have had installed or have foam insulation installed. They rely on the fact you won't be in a position to go into your attic to check. Don't allow these people into your property. They will take your money and you will gain no benefit from any work they do. Remember, any phone call out of the blue is likely to be a scam. If you are a member of a community group, charity or organisation that would like a talk from a member of Trading Standards about spotting scams and how to stay safe from scams and doorstep crime, then please email trading.standards@iow.gov.uk. This is a free service designed to protect island residents.
Hello, this is an article read by Sue from the Island Echo. Chinese pot with £500 estimate sells for £152,000 in Brading auction. A Chinese pot went under the hammer at HRD auction rooms in Brading on Tuesday morning for a staggering £152,000, despite having an estimate of just £300 to £500. The early 19th century porcelain pot was described in the catalogue as an old and circular pot with a cover featuring a decorative floral design and turquoise interior, measuring 21 centimetres in diameter. The pot, with good character markings, came complete with a decorative carved wooden stand. It wasn't long until it became clear that the bidding was going well above the estimate. With the price continuing to climb, the gavel finally came down at £152,000. But the buyer will have to pay a buyer's premium, taking the total amount to £182,400. A round of applause filled the room. Warren Witches of HRD Auction Rooms has explained to Island Echo that the rare coloration and the shape of the pot, as well as its immaculate condition, is what led to the high sale price. He also explained that Chinese porcelain is a fickle and difficult area of expertise to get right in terms of estimating its value. A second bowl, imperial yellow in colour, with a good character mark, also sold at auction for £42,000. It was guided at just £150 to £250 and described as being 17 centimetres in diameter, depicting scrollwork flowers with a rain mark to the base. It is thought that the bowls will almost certainly be going into the hands of a private collector. Also, from the same Isle of Wight estate as the two previous mentioned lots, was a pair of miniature Cloisonne bolster vases measuring just 11 centimetres tall. They were guided at £200 to £300 and sold for £12,000. Warren says, "It's great for the business to be able to bounce back in such a good way after being shut for almost 2 years during the COVID pandemic."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. New chair and vice chair of the council elected. Conservatives pushed out. A new chair of the Isle of Wight Council has been elected, despite her predecessor saying they faced abuse and threats from the public. At a quarrelsome meeting of the Isle of Wight Council on Wednesday night, it was all change, as a new chair and vice chair were chosen. Last year, independent Labour member Councillor Jeff Brodie took the highest civic position within the authority. In a speech before he left the role, however, Councillor Brodie said it was not one he wished to repeat, having been persuaded in the first instance to go against his long-held values and fill the role where there is an expectation to have a Christian faith and support the monarchy, neither of which he had. He said he was better placed as an opposition councillor for the next 3 years to hold any administration to account rather than presiding over it. The two contenders to take over the chair were Councillors Claire Critchison, the incumbent vice chair, and Chris Quirk, a former chair of the Planning Committee. Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, leader of the council, nominating Councillor Critchison, said she had been an excellent vice chair, attending the events Councillor Brodie had declined. Councillor Joe Robertson, leader of the Conservative group at County Hall, nominated Councillor Quirk, saying, "There being no overall control in the council, it would be sensible, fair and reasonable to swing the position between the two largest groups." Councillor Brodie said it was imperative there was a chair who could handle difficult meetings. He said he had faced abuse and threats of violence from the public gallery over a row with the leader of the council and her alleged ownership of racially offensive dolls, and was confident in Councillor Quirk due to his experience. Councillor Critchison, the Green Party member for Chale, Knighton and Shorell, was elected by 20 votes to 18 and thanked those who elected her. She said it was a huge honour she would not take lightly and would continue to develop the important role over the next year. Councillor Critchison said reflection sessions held before meetings would continue after prayers were stopped under Councillor Brodie's chair. She said she would introduce a multi-faith element to the sessions, so differences and diversity could be celebrated. Councillor Michael Lilly was elected as Vice Chair, securing 20 votes against Councillor Quirk's 18.
This is Alison reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled Jubilee Celebrations, Newport to Transform for Biggest Event in Years. Newport will transform for a day in June to mark Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Businesses, volunteers and local organisations are coming together to celebrate the historic occasion. In one of the biggest town centre events in recent years, Newport will play host to a range of free activities and sights on Saturday, June the 4th. The Grand Parade starts at 3 p.m. from Recreation Ground Road and makes its way down to Newport Quay. Upper High Street will also be closed during the parade. In St James's Square, there will be a big screen showing Jubilee broadcasts throughout the day, alongside live performances from Platform 1 from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. The market in St Thomas's Square will be open from 9 a.m, with local producers, artisans and businesses offering plenty to buy and enjoy. Lower High Street and St James's Square will have entertainment and performers in the street all day, so the roads will be closed to vehicles, but very much open to pedestrians. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, the Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet Member for Regeneration, said, "It's a great show of partnership working to show what we can do for this once-in-a-lifetime event. I'm looking forward to seeing our town at its best, to welcome people from across the island to enjoy this very special royal day and, of course, have some fun." The event is managed by Shaping Newport and supported by Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, Market Days CIC, Newport Business Association, Isle of Wight Council, Newport High Street Heritage Action Zone, Platform 1 and the National Lottery Community Fund. With an island-wide range of participants already, there are still places available. Local businesses, carnival associations, musicians and other outdoor display organisations are invited to get in touch and join the parade. Contact to join the parade or find out more at regeneration@iow.gov.uk.
Chillerton and Gatcombe Scarecrow Festival is back for 2022. From Island Echo, read by Chris. The quirky Chillerton and Gatcombe Scarecrow Festival is back for 2022, with over 100 gallybaggers set to be displayed between 28th of May and 3rd of June. Islanders are being invited to explore the vast array of scarecrows that have been made by villagers and put on display in their gardens and around the village. There will be over 100 scarecrows on display, from traditional gallybaggers to those on a more modern theme. Aunt Sally's tea rooms will be open in the village hall between 11 and 4 p.m, every day, serving teas and delicious homemade cakes. The Gallybagger Inn, the local pub, will also be open. Visitors are asked to vote for their favourites, and voting slips can be obtained from both Aunt Sally's and the Gallybagger. The festival, which began in 2010, will open with live music from Mark Bennett at the Gallybagger on Saturday the 28th of May and will close with the End of the Line playing on Friday the 3rd of June. For more information, visit www.gallybagger.org.uk.
Hello, this is an article read by Sue from the Isle of Wight Radio. Restoration plans for Ryde Seafront's historic Apley Tower. Plans to restore the Grade 2 listed Apley Tower on Ryde Seafront have finally been submitted. The tower has been closed to the public for many years, but now there is fresh hope to bring it back into use. In an application submitted to the Isle of Wight Council by Natural Enterprise, the tower would be renovated, repaired and reused as a shop and art gallery, as well as for educational purposes. The tower was last used in 2018 as a one-off on Apley Day, but in the past has been used as a cafe, a tourist shop and also somewhere to get your fortune read. Planning documents say due to time it has now stood empty. The tower requires investment to bring it up to a standard where it can be used and enjoyed by the public once more. Speaking in November last year, Graham Biss, Chief Executive of Natural Enterprise, told Ryde Town Council there were concerns the repair costs would hinder the scheme if they spiralled any further. A study in 2019 estimated repairs would cost more than 220,000, but to get the tower in a good enough state to open it to the public would be 330,000. A more up-to-date cost exercise was being completed. Works proposed as part of the application include repairs to the damaged stonework, doors and windows, with new timber decking and information boards outside the tower. Internally, a sliding door would be added, as well as a mezzanine level and stairs to allow the building to be used for community arts. A planning statement prepared by SJC Planning says the work would not fundamentally alter the tower itself. It says the changes are necessary to ensure safety of the visiting public and to protect the long-term future of the tower, but it cannot remain unused and empty. 4 beach huts have also been proposed as part of the application, adding to the existing rows further down Apley Beach. The proposed huts would provide income to pay for future repairs and maintenance of the tower. You can view the plans 22/00639/FUL on the Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until June the 14th.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Free 1-hour parking in Newport in a bid to tempt shoppers back in. Free 1-hour parking is set to launch in Newport next week as part of an initial 6-month trial to tempt more shoppers into the town centre, but it is going to cost local taxpayers at least £20,000. From Monday the 23rd of May, shoppers and visitors wishing to park for up to 1 hour can park free in short-stay car parks at Lugley Street, C Street and Chapel Street, Newt Street. Drivers still need to collect a free pay and display ticket from the parking machine and display it in the windscreen, or register their parking on the Pay by Phone parking app. For stays of over 1 hour, a ticket for the full parking session must be purchased at the normal tariff. For example, if you park for between 1 and 2 hours, you will need to purchase a 2-hour ticket. The Isle of Wight Council and Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council are working in partnership on the pilot, which aims to increase high street footfall and boost trade for local retailers and independent shops. The initiative is part of the Shaping Newport partnership programme that brings together business and councils to develop a new future for the county town. Colin Burgess, Vice Chair of Newport Business Association, said, "I hear continually that the cost of parking is a barrier to people visiting our town. Let's remove this barrier by providing some free parking, attract shoppers back to the town centre and boost the economy in Newport. If this trial is successful, we hope to roll out more initiatives along these lines." Councillor Shirley Smart, Chairman of Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council, which is contributing an initial £20,000 towards the trial, said, "It is essential that we encourage both our local residents and tourists back into our town. which is why we, as the local community council, proposed and funded this parking experiment. Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Highways and Infrastructure, said, "As the local economy continues to recover from the pandemic, it is vital that we work to support local businesses. Working with our partners, we are fully committed to working on a range of innovative projects which will support our towns to thrive and prosper in a post-pandemic society. These schemes demonstrate the commitment to work with the town and parish councils across the island in bringing the best outcomes for their communities in a joint approach and by working together in partnership."
This is Alison reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled "Police Attend Newport Residence After Woman Wounded During Domestic Incident." Police were called to Newport on Saturday after a woman in her 50s suffered a leg injury following a domestic incident. A spokesperson for Hampshire Constabulary said, "We were called at 10:24 p.m. yesterday to a report of a domestic incident taking place at an address on Manor Crescent, Newport. Officers attended and discovered a woman in her 50s with an injury to her leg. She was taken to hospital for treatment and has since been discharged. A 30-year-old woman was arrested on suspicion of wounding without intent. She has been released from police custody with no further action being taken against her."
Octogenarian Islander to sail around Britain to raise funds for Parkinson's research. From Island Echo, read by Chris. 81-year-old David Temple will set sail around the UK from Yarmouth to raise money and awareness for Parkinson's UK and Cure Parkinson's next Tuesday, the 24th of May. The main motivation for the epic journey of the West Wight resident is that his wife Hazel has suffered from the debilitating disease for many years. He aims to raise as much money and awareness for two charities, doing their utmost to find a cure for a disease which affects over 145,000 people in the UK alone. What makes this voyage exceptional is the age of David and his crew. Sailing with him is 69-year-old former Olympian Andre Usborne. Other sailors will join them on their epic 2,100-mile journey, including Kit Noble, who himself suffers from Parkinson's. The challenging route includes navigating round the most northerly point of the British Isles, a rock called Muckle Flugga, nearer to Norway than mainland Scotland. The journey is expected to take at least 29 days, with some tricky stretches of coast, overnight sailing, and everything the British weather throws at the crew of the 34-foot yacht. David says, "My lovely wife was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease some years ago. For those who don't know, it's a degenerative disease affecting your whole body in so many ways, slowly attacking and breaking down the body's systems. Every day, my wife relentlessly and gallantly struggles through it. She is not alone. There are 145,000 in the UK living with Parkinson's, and every hour 2 more are diagnosed. The numbers are rising. Parkinson's UK are funding research that can give hope for the future. They need better treatments now. Not in 10 years, not in 20 years. That's why Parkinson's UK are pushing to deliver a new treatment by the end of 2024. They invest more into Parkinson's research than any other non-commercial funder in Europe. I am in my 80s with many ageing issues, but still active and able to support her. My challenge is to sail my small 34-foot yacht around Britain, some 2,000 miles, and round the most northerly point of the British Isles, a rock called Muckle Flugga, nearer to Norway than mainland Scotland, as mentioned earlier. It's a tough one. I'll visit remote locations where you can see 4 seasons of weather in one day with tricky navigation and lots of overnight sailing. Andre Usborne, a good friend and sailor, will stay with me for the whole journey, but we will be joined at various stages to get through the tricky bits of the journey by Kit Noble, who also has Parkinson's, John Smith, Steve Burton, and my grandson Sam. Follow me on the Marine Traffic app on your phone and search for Second Wind UK to follow us. We leave Yarmouth, Isle of Wight on Tuesday the 24th of May at 6 a.m. and, with a fair wind, we'll be back via London on the 3rd of July. Anyone wishing to donate to David Temple's Parkinson's research fundraising may do so by visiting www.justgiving.com/fundraising/David Temple 81.
Hello, this is an article read by Sue from Isle of Wight Radio. East Cowes man charged after disruption at Town Council meeting. An East Cowes man has been charged and will appear in court following the disruption of a Town Council meeting in March. On March the 31st, Simon Wheeler entered a meeting of East Cowes Town Council where the Norris Castle planning application was being discussed. Wheeler, 55, had previously been convicted of using threatening, abusive and insulting words with the intent to cause fear of unlawful violence towards Councillor Carl Love, a member of both East Cowes Town Council and the Isle of Wight Council. As part of his conviction, Wheeler was given a 12-month restraining order to stay away from Councillor Love. The March 31st meeting was adjourned. Police were called and arrested a 55-year-old man who was bailed until April the 28th. A Hampshire Constabulary spokesman confirmed on Tuesday Wheeler had been charged with breaching and restraining order as well as using threatening or abusive words or behaviour likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress. Wheeler is due to appear before the Isle of Wight's Magistrates Court on May the 31st after being given bail with conditions.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Court date set as Harbour House battle against council over licence. A popular ride hotspot is taking the Isle of Wight Council to court after the authority refused its application to stay open until the small hours. Harbour House on Ryde Esplanade has tried twice in 18 months to extend its premises licence. It was successful in September 2020, but only granted an extra half hour. In March this year, the restaurant applied to stay open, sell alcohol and play music even later until 1:30, 7 days a week. After hearing from licensing officers and concerned neighbours, the Isle of Wight Council's Licensing Committee rejected the potential extension. It is this decision Harbour House is appealing, and to do so requires the matter to be determined by magistrates. The first listing of the appeal was heard recently at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court in Newport, and a date was set for a hearing where evidence from both sides would be given and the magistrates would make a ruling. In his appeal of the Council's decision, Carl Harding from Harbour House argued the application was misrepresented due to evidence submitted to the Licensing Committee. It is said the evidence given was for a separate event run on a temporary event notice, not the current trading licence. The event in question was in July last year, for which the venue received a formal written notice with the threat of further enforcement action after causing significant disturbance to local residents. The Council's committee heard how the event had a base level recorded at a nearby property at 1 o'clock higher than that recorded at the closest residential property to the Isle of Wight festival. The extension to licence was hoped to help the business grow, Mr. Harding said, as well as improving facilities for customers. However, the committee felt it had been persuaded by the evidence that no conditions could be applied to mitigate the harm caused. Speaking at the court, Edward Elton, on behalf of the authority, said it opposes the appeal. The case will be heard by magistrates on the 18th of August.
This is Alison, reading an article from On the Wight entitled New Anti-Domestic Abuse Project Rolled Out Across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. The Force-wide Domestic Abuse Project has been rolled out to pursue repeat domestic abuse perpetrators as part of a strategy to tackle violence against women. Since January 2021, Hampshire Constabulary, in partnership with the Hampton Trust, have led the Home Office funded project with the aim to identify and manage the most dangerous perpetrators of physical and sexual violence in the community, offering them pathways to try and help change their behaviour. Project Foundation was first piloted in Southampton and Eastleigh and has since been rolled out across the remainder of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Working with the Hampton Trust, one of the most respected and innovative UK providers of work in the field of domestic abuse and criminal justice, a method has been devised to analyse existing police data to identify perpetrators for management and intervention by neighbourhood-based high harm teams. The focus is on perpetrators whose abuse has occurred in a family setting where children are present and where we have not been able to bring a change. Project Foundation officers are making unannounced visits to perpetrators, offering them diversion through behavioural change programmes, as well as any relevant support to alcohol, drug, mental health or financial problems to stop the cycle of abuse and identify any new relationships where someone could be at risk. Together with invaluable expertise of partner agencies, this targeted project seeks to identify the underlying causes of abusive behaviour towards intimate partners and offers long-term solutions to protect victims from further abuse and reduce perpetrators' behaviour. It also reminds perpetrators we're watching them and we're trying to get them to change. Detective Chief Inspector David West, Head of Offender Management and Lead for Domestic Abuse Perpetrator Response, said, "We know that a large number of domestic abuse cases are not prosecuted due to the incredibly complex nature of the circumstances that have usually occurred in the privacy of a home. A victim may have suffered for years before having the confidence to report their abuser. So it's enormously important that policing responds when it is revealed, by providing effective ongoing help for victims and intervention for the perpetrator. We know that women are disproportionately victims of domestic abuse at the hands of men, which is why this is part of our strategy to tackle violence against women and girls. We also know the devastating impact domestic abuse can have on children who witness it in the home. When we do not have sufficient evidence to prosecute, but we know incidents are happening and someone is suffering, Project Foundation allows us to be relentless at going after abusers by disrupting their behaviour and offering long-term change with the help and support of our partners. Our results will be seen in those who begin to engage with behaviour change programmes, the reduction of offending, and I hope the increased confidence of victims who have suffered so terribly." CEO of Hampton Trust, Chantal Hughes, said, Project Foundation is an opportunity to tackle the root cause of domestic abuse by holding perpetrators to account for their actions. Our partnership with Hampshire Constabulary and Aurora New Dawn ensures we analyse police data and provide a targeted response to perpetrators who we know are causing harm and have potential to slip under the radar. This is a way of effectively managing high harm perpetrators by fast tracking them into Hampton Trust for assessment and support. Importantly, the Integrated Victim Safety Service ensures victims are also supported. Once identified, we work alongside Hampshire Constabulary to monitor and track all perpetrators referred to Project Foundation. I have no doubt that this is a positive step forward in sending a strong message to perpetrators that we are continuing to monitor them. Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones said, "Project Foundation is a great example of Hampshire Constabulary working in partnership with domestic abuse charities to find innovative ways to reduce violence against women. By targeting the perpetrators of these crimes, the experts in the field can better understand the root causes and tackle the cycle of abuse. Working with the Hampton Trust, I am commissioning services to not only prevent reoffending, but to help some of the most at-risk people in our communities. This is something I am wholly committed to, which is why I created Hampshire and the Isle of Wight's first Violence Against Women and Girls Task Group in September."
This morning it's Imelda reading the news for you.
And Kate.
Well, before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's society news. Swimming will be on this Monday as usual. The group are always looking for more members to join them at Medina Leisure Centre, held every Monday between 1:30 and 2:30 p.m. The group has full use of the pool and the cost is only £5 plus transport if required. Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10 to 11:30 a.m. and at only £1 for cake and coffee. Please come along for a chat and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information. 10-pin bowling is booked for the 25th of May at Ryde Super Bowl between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. If you would like to join us, please call the office and book a space. Our Mix and Mingle group is not on next week or the following week due to the Jubilee celebrations. Striders is on Friday, starting at the Horse and Groom pub, Ningwood. It will be a circular walk around Cranmore and Hampstead, finishing back at the pub for lunch. Please call the office for more information. Our very special Jubilee party is on Thursday at the Wednes Hall off St John's Road, Newport, starting at 2 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. You must call the office and book a space, although spaces are now very limited. Due to this event, the office at Millbrook will be closing at 1 p.m. on Thursday and reopen on Friday at 9 a.m. as normal.
And now we do news items. There's a harsh reality of housing crisis revealed. The harsh reality of the Isle of Wight's critical housing need has been highlighted by senior councillors, including 42 island families living in emergency accommodation following an immediate risk of homelessness. It comes as the cost of living crisis makes it harder for people to make ends meet. Speaking at the Council's Cabinet meeting last week, Councillor Ian Stevens, the Deputy Leader and Housing Portfolio Holder, laid bare the numbers of people in most desperate need of housing on the island. Figures reveal 2,466 people are on the Council's housing register. 1,185 people are looking for one-bed properties, 756 for 2 beds, 402 for 3 beds, 104 for 4 beds, and 19 for 5 and 6 bed properties. The Council is also supporting 23 homeless singles and couples and 42 homeless families in emergency accommodation. In the past 10 years, since the implementation of the Council's last planning strategy, there had been a 1,244 home shortfall of new housing, Councillor Stevens said. He said if even half of those homes had been built, it could have alleviated a lot of the problems. The newest draft island planning strategy, which it is hoped will solve some of the planning issues from a policy side of things, has been further delayed. Councillor Stevens said the figures brought home the harsh reality of homelessness and the drastic need to get a planning strategy that is fit for purpose. It was also a call, Councillor Stevens said, for the Council to start its house building programme and empty property search. According to recent government figures, 121 homes on the island have been empty for more than 2 years, with 449 homes empty for more than 6 months. Without laying down any bricks and mortar, Councillor Stevens said that it's a sample the Council could actually work with and try to fix some of the problems and distress within our community. In February, the Council agreed to borrow £40 million to build houses for islanders and address the housing crisis, as well as earmarking £2.5 million to start a council-owned housing company.
Experienced new principal named for Island College. The Isle of Wight College has announced who the new principal will be following the retirement of Debbie Lafton later this year. After nearly 2 decades of service to the college, Debbie will be stepped down at the end of this term. Following a rigorous selection process, the college governors announced the appointment of Ross Parker as the next principal, joining at the start of the autumn term 2022. Ross has a wide experience in the further education sector and is currently principal of Southend Adult Community College, and before that was principal of Prospect College of Advanced Technology. Ross said, "I'm honoured to be appointed as principal of the Isle of Wight College, and I look forward to getting to know students and parents, staff and our partners across the island's community." Debbie Levin said, "I've enjoyed my 18 years at the college immensely, and I'm pleased to be able to hand over to someone with excellent experience that will keep the college moving forward in the right direction. I wish Ross the very best of luck in her new role."
Think before you throw. The Isle of Wight Council and Amy are teaming up to encourage islanders to think before you throw. Many old belongings are discarded without thinking twice. This year, why not become a super recycler and think before you throw? Could your items be reused by others? The Isle of Wight Council, in partnership with Amy, accept items at the curbside and at Lynn Bottom and Afton Marsh recycling centres that are in good condition and work with local charities, Storeroom 2010 and the Mountbatten Hospice, to donate them free of charge to be reused. The charities can then sell these on, creating funds to support their good causes. Natasha Dix, Strategic Manager for the Environment said, "We collect undamaged and fully working household items such as furniture or televisions for free at your curbside or at our recycling centres. As the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And this is very often the case with some of the household waste we see. That quirky bit of furniture, with a little love and a fresh coat of paint, can be turned into something modern or donated to support a charity here on the island. Items that can be put to good use, including household decorations, furniture or working electricals. They should be in a usable condition, and any furniture, such as sofas, armchairs or settees, need to have their fire safety certificates attached. To book a free household collection for reusable items, you can visit the Island Community website or contact the Waste Services on 823 777. But if you plan to visit Lynbottom or Afton Marsh recycling centres, book an appointment online first. New signage has been installed at both sites, encouraging visitors to think before throwing their items away and speak to staff for advice and help.
Public meeting to discuss Gurnard Green Eco Lodges. Plans for what is claimed to be one of the first net zero holiday villages in the UK have been unveiled for Gurnard. A development of 40 eco lodges and an eco cafe at Gurnard Green have been proposed by Z Eco Homes for a field next to Gurnard Pines. A public meeting is being held later this month for residents to find out more. The energy-efficient holiday lodges would each have 2 bedrooms and an electric car charger. They would also be equipped with integrated solar panels, which are said to have the capability to generate enough electricity to meet the unit's demands, with enough surplus to power a small electric car for around 5,000 miles a year. While the lodges would be connected to mains power, Z says they would only take power from the mains in the deepest of winter or at peak times when demand is usually high. Z said the prefabricated lodges are designed to last a minimum of 3 generations, but can be easily moved, leaving no permanent impact on the site and having a net zero carbon footprint. The Eco Cafe will also house 2 single apartments, one for a caretaker and the other as a holiday let. Access to the site will be via Cockleton Lane, but the lodges would be screened from the road and Gurnard Pines by the existing woodland. A public meeting will be held to discuss the development, and a forthcoming planning application on Tuesday, May the 31st at 6 p.m. in the Gurnard Pines Cafe. The Z spokesman said more information about the development will be given at the meeting and wanted people to be involved. If the application was favourably received, they said, a planning application could be submitted in a month, but feedback from the local residents would be taken on board, so changes could be made.
Hover Travel commit to giving extra support where needed. Hover Travel is the first cross-Solent ferry operator to officially recognise the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower. Customers can choose to wear a sunflower lanyard as an indication that they may require additional support, assistance, or simply a little more time while travelling. Neil Chapman, the Managing Director of Hover Travel, explains, "Our commitment to accessibility has been certified by the government, and our Hovercare imitation has been commended by regional and national award schemes. By partnering with the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower, we are continuing on our journey to make hovercraft travel accessible to all, and we want to become bespoke video training on the company's intranet, ensuring employees have already gained a better understanding of what an invisible disability is and how to become more confident to approach and support customers wearing a sunflower lanyard. Paul White, the CEO of Hidden Disabilities Sunflower, added, "Sunflower wearers with non-visible disabilities will travel with confidence in the knowledge they will be met with kindness, patience and understanding by Hover Travel crew on their journey across the Solent." In 2020, Hover Travel was awarded Leader level in the government's Inclusive Transport Leaders scheme. It is the top level of accreditation in this scheme, with Hover Travel being one of 2 companies which have achieved it, and the only ferry operator included in the scheme. Having launched Hovercare in 2016, the Isle of Wight Ferry Company has developed the initiative from a series of comprehensive internal training procedures into a company-wide approach, which regularly shares best practice with other businesses.
Stone Crabs Theatre's Young People Survey. In their 20th year, Stone Crabs Theatre wants to hear what young people on the Isle of Wight think about theatre and what it could be and what they could do to help. If you're aged 14 to 30 and have an interest in theatre and film, you can complete a survey on what you think the island needs. More dance, more drama, more opportunities, more world-class shows. Stone Crabs Theatre offers training and support for young people who want to develop skills in the theatre and film industry through a series of programmes including Directors in Practice and Island Young Creatives. Directors in Practice is a free 6-month programme for directors and producers. Each director directs a 1-act play of their choosing, while each producer will be given one-to-one sessions with industry professionals to learn more how to produce a theatre show from the ground up. Island Young Creatives works with young people to transfer existing theatre skills into making films, working on script-to-screen developments and production skills. Stone Crabs production all aimed to give a voice to unrepresented sections of the community and put untold stories centre stage. Artistic director Franco Figueiredo said, 20 years of Stone Crabs and the world has changed. The world has evolved. And we have changed too. We have made some progress, and yet it is not enough, and we must continue. Here's to another 20 years of shining a light on untold stories. You can complete the survey at bit.ly/capitals IWO dash capital T lowercase HEATRE capital SURVEY. You will be entered into a free prize draw to win a 1-year membership to Masterclass or a £50 voucher to spend at Cineworld or Rapuanui.
As the anniversary of the Queen's 70 years on the throne approaches, excitement is growing for the 270 volunteers that will be taking part in the official Platinum Jubilee pageant in London on June the 5th. Shademakers, the internationally acclaimed carnival company based in Ryde, will be travelling with volunteer performers and musicians to represent the Queen's Beasts, a panoply of creatures, each representing a different nation of the UK. With more than 100 costumes, they will represent the animals of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, led by lions in each country's heraldry. The English section has swans, peacocks, ravens, falcons and dancing roses. The Scottish section has unicorns, Scottish dancers, bagpipes and drums. The Welsh section has a dragon, chickens, pigs and sheep. The Northern Irish section features a snake, an Irish wolfhound and a bull. During her coronation in 1953, Queen Elizabeth walked past 10 heraldic beasts as she entered Westminster Abbey, and these will be portrayed by 10 knights on horseback. They will all dance to the rhythms of drums and pipes from across the world, representing the countries of the Commonwealth. In one of their final dress rehearsals at the Island Riding Club, the Isle of Wight Observer caught up with the team and witnessed some of the incredible costumes that will entertain the crowds and hopefully Her Majesty herself.
New primate rescue facility. The Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary in Sandown will be opening a first-of-its-kind primate rescue facility on Saturday, May the 28th. This newly designed and built structure will house multiple species of primates that the sanctuary aims to rehome over the coming years. The facility is constructed of 2 gigantic bamboo domes, the first of their kind in Europe. The largest dome stands 12 metres, 38 feet, tall and is constructed from 777 bamboo poles, which are laid end to end, and they would stretch over 2 kilometres or 1¼ miles. To complement the echo domes, there are bedrooms made from 102 bales of straw, an insect-friendly living roof, and a self-cleaning living floor, which the animals can access 24 hours a day. Lawrence Bate, Chief Operation Officer at the Wild Hive Sanctuary, said, "This is a landmark building for us and the island, marrying up the latest cutting-edge technologies with traditional materials to produce a fantastic yet environmentally friendly rescue space." Many visitors have likened this structure to the Eden Project, and I would certainly agree this is one of the most iconic structures in the south. The facility is complete with a second set of bedrooms made with upcycled blocks from a derelict animal house in another area of the sanctuary. Aligned with a strict zero waste policy, any unusable blocks were recycled into the pathways, and the offcuts from the bamboo will be made into toys for the sanctuary's rescued tigers and lions. Mark Fox, animal manager, said, "I stand in awe in the middle of the giant domed habitat, feeling both proud and excited that we have managed to produce this show-stopping spectacle. I have visited a lot of primate habitats over the years and can honestly and confidently say that this exceeds all my expectations. The sheer size and design of the domes themselves means that we can develop and evolve a real habitat within, which can offer the inhabitants the ability to express their natural behaviours and have the space and complexity to feel safe, enriched and comfortable for the rest of their lives. To experience these iconic buildings this half-term, book your tickets at wildheartanimalsanctuary.org, all lowercase."
An island detective has been honoured at the Hampshire Constabulary's Chief Constable Awards ceremony. Acting Detective Sergeant Ian Robertson has been recognised for his dedication and was presented with Chief Constable Olivia Pinkney's Quiet Brilliance Award in recognition of his committed personal response to serious crime on the island. He was acknowledged for his professional support to colleagues and other supervisors during times of peak demand in particular, for taking ownership of serious offences and actively promoting an investigative response and victim-focused approach in the role of Acting Detective Sergeant. He's also delivered a series of training sessions for special constables on top of his day job to enhance the skills of these officers. The award was presented at the Police Support and Training Headquarters in Netley.
Police seek trespasser. Police are urging members of the public to take extra care and caution when visiting open spaces and nature reserves on the Isle of Wight to ensure the protection of wildlife and nesting birds. This follows a recent incident when they received a report of a man trespassing within a secure area at RSPB Brading Marshes Nature Reserve, having climbed over a gate which is fitted with barbed wire to prevent access. The man was accompanied by a dog off a lead, and the dog was disturbing nesting birds within the swamp habitat. It was reported to police that the man was challenged by an RSPB volunteer, but the man simply responded to say he will do what he likes. A police spokesman said, "This attitude is incredibly disappointing and poses a threat to our wildlife. This report has been passed to local officers and will be looking into the circumstances. We have a close community of wildlife lovers on the Isle of Wight, and we ask everyone to please be responsible and to familiarise themselves with the law. All birds' eggs and their nests, when being built or used, are protected by law under the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981. Regardless of your intentions, if your actions are reckless, then you are in breach of the law. Contravention of the law would result in prosecution with a penalty of up to 6 months' imprisonment, an unlimited fine, or both."
Peer review finds planning problems. An independent review into whether the Isle of Wight Council's planning system works or doesn't has been conducted by mainland officials after allegations of mistreatment were levelled at the Council's Planning Committee in the past few months. Members of the Local Government Association visited the authority this week to undertake a peer review and, at no cost to the local authority, providing Critical Friends' view of the authority's weaknesses and opportunities. At a feedback meeting yesterday afternoon, Thursday, the inspectors delivered their initial verdict that there are elements of the planning system that aren't working as well as they should and require improvement. A full report will be prepared within the next 4 weeks. More than 75 people have been interviewed, and inspectors have come across from a variety of other authorities, including Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. A member of the Alliance Group described the process as thorough, informative and very helpful, adding that they had been told of issues from numerous sources, which was why the process had been initiated.
More safety buoys at Colwell Bay Beach. Freshwater Parish Council have welcomed more safety buoys this year at the popular Colwell Bay Beach, thanks to sponsorship from the Hut restaurant. 10 bright yellow safety buoys were installed around Howe Ledge on the north side of Colwell Chine Road in 2021, following an initiative by Freshwater Parish Council. A similar project was carried out by Totland Parish Council to the south. In the past, safety buoys demarcating the lane for boat access to the Colwell Chine slipway were installed by the Isle of Wight Council, but they have not been installed since 2016 due to funding costs. The lack of boundaries left swimmers and other beach owners at risk from powered and fast-moving craft, such as speedboats, jet skis, windsurf and kite surfing boards. Chairman of Freshwater's Parish Council, Daniel James, said, "The buoys that the 2 parishes installed last year were welcomed by all beach users as they helped mitigate an obvious safety risk in the bay. Sponsorship from the hut will pay for 3 more large yellow buoys, chain and sinkers around Howe Ledge, and a great snorkelling spot thanks to the rock pools teeming with marine life and a rare peacock's tail seaweed. The buoys are licensed by the Marine Management Organisation, Trinity House and Crown Estate.
A grant will help with film and photo skills. The Queen's Award-winning Shanklin Voluntary Youth and Community Centre has been awarded an £8,295 Youth Investment Fund grant to provide opportunities for the young people in Shanklin and the Bay Area to learn filmmaking and photography skills and access media experiences. Welcoming the grant, the High Sheriff Kay Marriott said, "I know previous High Sheriffs have visited this voluntary youth and community centre, and it is home to such a range of groups, providing much needed quality activities for young people as well as community organisations." The Shanklin Voluntary Youth and Community Centre Chairman Paul Biddlecombe added, "We've come a long way since relaunching in 1995, and support like this allows us to continue to offer programmes already in place, as well as the new activities this funding will provide. Since COVID restrictions were in place, the centre has focused on developing drama groups and new filmmaking projects, such as an Islands Olympic Journey, with Olympian and ex-member Richard Jeffries, Shanklin Voluntary and Youth and Community Centre, 25 plus years of making a difference, and other projects as part of the YouTube Growing Up in the Bay series, soon to include a Jubilee film. Shanklin's deputy member Sue Godden pointed out that the centre supports groups like the Shanklin Carnival and Greentown Volunteers and said, "I know this funding will make a difference." The centre is planning a street party for the Jubilee and is working with Shanklin Football Club on sporting activities for young people, in addition to further film and media projects.
Local man builds 198th XOD One Design yacht. For 6 years it has been a labour of love for Nick Whittle. His dream of building the 198th XOD One Design yacht is close to fruition. Nick, who owns Whittle Marine just outside Yarmouth, says he is a powerboat man through and through, but claims this project has been a real achievement. He said, "We have done everything from scratch, from a set of old plans. We bought a 30-foot-long mahogany log, which weighs 3.5 tons, from West Africa, and it came here via Germany. I felt a bit apprehensive about taking this on because, having bought the log, we knew we would have to take it on and do a good job. We have repaired and maintained XODs, and we know the problems which we have managed to iron out over the last 18 years. This will be a brand new boat, which will give its owner 30 plus years of grief-free sailing. You can only keep repairing old boats for so long. By building this boat, it will also help strengthen the class, and by continuing to build these boats, it will make the class more appealing." The XOD One Design was designed by Alfred Westercott, who was the managing director of Woodnuts Boatloan in St Helens, and it was first raced during Cows Week 1911. This week's Cows Week, beginning on July the 30th, is the aim for Nick's latest model. He added, "We hope to be either displaying it on Cows Parade or have it in the water. It needs to be there. We've been through a lot of turmoil over the last few years with Brexit and COVID, but we've kept going on this boat, and it has been a real achievement. We still have enough mahogany to build 2 more, so we hope to be able to make the 200th boat in the class.
To commemorate Her Majesty the Queen's 70 years on the throne, the newly formed Cowes Heritage and Community Group is holding a 2-week exhibition at the Beckford Centre in Cowes, featuring the 5 official visits she has made to the island. A formal opening before specially invited guests will be performed next Friday, May the 27th, by the Isle of Wight's Lord Lieutenant Susie Sheldon, who is the Queen's representative on the island. The exhibition will then be open daily to the public from May the 28th until June the 11th. Among visits covered by the display will be the Queen's investiture of Lord Louis, the Earl Mountbatten of Burma, as Governor of the island at Carisbrooke Castle in 1965, and her last island visit in 2012, when she came to Cowes as part of her UK Diamond Jubilee tour. Photographs of all visits will be on display and admission is free. Opening times will usually be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, although on the 2 Mondays it will open at 1 p.m, and on the 2 Thursdays it will open between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Cowes Heritage and Community Group, a registered charity, is the result of a merger between Cowes Heritage and the former charity that occupied the Beckford Centre. To accommodate all the Cowes Heritage archives, the Beckford Centre has been extended by the addition of an archive room and a storeroom at the rear of the building, which resulted in the Beckford Centre being closed to the public during much of 2021. The Jubilee event also marks the formal reopening of the extended Beckford Centre.
First meerkat pups at Tapnell Farm Park. Tapnell Farm Park has a bit of a baby boom last month, with chicks born at Easter, harvest mice pups and 2 joeys in the Wallaby Walkabout. Now they've welcomed some new additions to their meerkat family, as Cola and Dotto, their slender-tailed meerkats, have given birth to 2 pups, sex currently unknown, a first for the park. The pups first emerged outside a few days ago, but keepers have been keeping watch over them in the nest via a camera, and believe the pups to be a few weeks old now. Meerkat pups spend their first 3 weeks hidden in the nest, being tended to by their parents. As they get bigger and stronger, they get more confident and adventurous, and are occasionally seen out and about, but only on warmer days at the moment. For meerkats to become a breeding pair, there must be a strong bond between them before they mate, with pregnancy lasting about 70 to 77 days. At birth, the pups are blind and deaf and fully depend on their parents for the first 10 days. After a few weeks, they begin to explore the world and will be taught by their parents how to hunt and forage for food. Although the pups look healthy, they're still young and vulnerable and will soon be checked over by a vet. But keepers are happy with their progress so far and keeping everything crossed for them. For pup dates on the meerkat duo, keep a lookout on Tapnell's Farm social media.
Cowes RNLI, given the go-ahead to launch, for the first time by Jason Hughes, a newly appointed Deputy Launch Officer, came to the rescue of 3 crewmen suffering severe seasickness last Friday afternoon, May the 13th. The lifeboat, launched at 3:50 p.m, battled through force-6 winds against tide, attended a 35-foot yacht on which 3 of the 4-man crew were poorly. The skipper called for help after failing to start his engine as he sailed from mid-Solent to the shelter of Osborne Bay. On arrival at the scene, a lifeboat member went aboard and dispensed seasick tablets. Then the yacht was towed to Trinity Landing, where coastguards were waiting to give the sick crewmen further attention. Also arriving at Trinity Landing was a yacht which had been dismasted in the windswept Western Solent and towed to safety by Yarmouth RNLI. The 33-foot ketch, with 3 people on board, was drifting in an easterly direction from Hampstead Ledge, where it was first reported as being located at 3:34 p.m. Its mainmast had broken, bringing down with it all sails, rigging, and the ketch's second mast. The Yarmouth crew reached the ketch east of Newtown Creek, and once all aspects of rigging was secure, it was decided to tow the vessel to Cowes as it was the nearest safe harbour. The lifeboat returned to her berth in Yarmouth Harbour and was ready for service at 5:49 p.m.
And now we move on to memories. Quirky tales from the pages of the county press in the 1960s. And this is Alan Stroud. A recent Memories article looked at the quirky, humorous articles and one-liners that the county press of the past delighted in. Here are some more of these items, this time from the 1960s. To begin with the winter of 1962-63. It was the coldest winter in living memory and was known as the Big Freeze. Snow fell in mid-December and laid for 2 long months. Mrs. Gutton of Northwood felt the full force of the freeze-up. She was visiting friends on the mainland for some weeks, and while she was away, the big thaw began. The CP reported, her neighbours were alarmed to see water pouring out from underneath the front door, and looking through the letterbox, they saw ice 5 inches thick covering the hallway and water dripping from the ceiling. They broke in to find an extraordinary sight. Ice more than 1 inch thick completely covered one wall. A bowl of flowers was entirely encased and letters were frozen into the ice. Mrs. Gutton's neighbours mucked in and spent 3 hours chipping the ice away. Oosh! The days when neighbours were neighbours. In July 1963, Mr. Bown of White Pit Lane, Newport, had a brainwave years ahead of its time. He wrote to the county press to share his uncanny premonition. What about using the disused railway tracks as cycle roads with a footpath for pedestrians? The cost of making the old tracks suitable for cyclists, I imagine, would not be all that expensive and would set a cycling boom in the island. Just imagine a lovely straight and level path from, say, Freshwater to Bembridge or Sandown to St. Lawrence. The pedal cyclist's dream. Give that man a prize. A month later, in the Town and County Notes column, under the headline, "The Silly Season is Here," the following curious letter appeared. On Friday, August the 9th, at 8:30 a.m, my father was approaching Somerton Corner. From a field gateway emerged 2 girls. One dressed in a white brassiere and panties, the other in jeans and shirt. What could the explanation have been?
It was a fair question, and the answer, blunt and to the point, came in the next issue. Dear Sir, the lady and her husband, wondering what the 2 girls were doing, coming from a gateway on Somerton Corner, can now have their explanation. It was not a girl in shirt and jeans, it was a boy, a beatnik where I come from, and that boy was me. If she had looked over the gate about 5 minutes earlier, she would not have been so inquisitive. Signed G. Summers of Brighton. Well, that told us. A few weeks later, Dorothy Hardiman of St. Helens also had a query. My husband and I were walking along the beach at Bembridge when we saw, standing to attention, a penguin. It allowed us to approach within 2 feet of it, then waddled off slowly to the sea. Is it a rare or unusual thing for penguins to visit the island? The following week, a sceptical correspondent wrote in to ask if the penguin was a paperback. In a reflection of how times were so different to today, in early 1965, Mrs. Bailey of Ryde wrote, "I would like to express my disapproval of the way pigs are marked in Newport Market. I was there on March the 10th and was disgusted with the way they were being treated. The holes punched in their ears were as big as sixpences, and the amount of blood over the pigs and on the ground was terrible. Surely there is a more humane way of marking these creatures. It is not a very pleasant sight for children who are always in the market." Thank goodness, computers have got smaller. In June 1965, Island Notes reported, "The County Council's computer arrived on Thursday. The robot age machine weighs 1 tonne and its printing equipment weighs half a tonne." The following year, in April 1966, came this unusual tale under the headline, "Thirsty Adder Meets Its Doom." Patrons are always assured of a friendly welcome at the Sportsman's Rest at Porchfield, but the exception proves the rule. On Monday, Mrs. Jill Tilbury, wife of the licensee, had a shock when she saw one of the first customers of the morning, an adder. By way of introduction, the visitor flung back its head and hissed. Mrs. Tilbury called for her husband, who, armed with a mallet, called a hasty "Time, gentlemen, please," for the adder. With the introductions complete, Mr. Tilbury transferred the adder to a large jar, tangible evidence for any friends who might otherwise have doubted the story. Finally, from July 1966 comes this tale of ingenuity. While prawning in the shallows with a push net, a Yarmouth resident came across a brand new outboard engine. He had the engine dried out, cleaned and running perfectly within 2 hours.
And now we move on to My View, Catherine James, A Rebel Without a Clear Course. In his book about animal behaviour, King Solomon's Ring, Austrian zoologist Konrad Lorenz observes that when going about its business, a shrew will take the most direct route. Once the creature is well settled in its path habits, it is as strictly bound to them as a railway engine is to its tracks. Perhaps this is because these tiny creatures have such a short lifespan that there isn't time to fanny around taking the scenic route. I don't know. I'm not an ethologist. What I do know is that the island is chock full of scenic routes, not just for tiny mammals, but for us big ones too. The county abounds with recreational footpaths, as this month's Isle of Wight Walking Festival exploited. But like the shrew, you might prefer to make a beeline, possibly not quite the right analogy, but you know what I mean. Maybe there's a prosaic reason to take a direct journey on foot. To the supermarket, say? Big Tesco's is within walking distance of my home, and so I set up reusable carriers in hand. It's not a particularly pleasant walk, but better than one a friend has to navigate to his nearest supermarket. There, urban planners have made it all but impossible to visit the shop other than by road. The distance from his house is shorter than on foot, but the unlit path is so gnarly and uninviting, most shoppers feel compelled to drive. I walked it myself one evening, down steep wooden steps to a muddy track which narrowed so much in places that it was impossible not to tread in the central quagmire created by dozens of other feet, and with exposed tree roots as a bonus trip hazard. I emerged from the back side of the shop path, pinch-pointed by a wheelie bin. Everyone with a buggy, trolley or mobility scooter could not have navigated this way. At Morrison's in Lake, there's a road directly in front of the store where cars and shoppers jostle for space, the latter distractedly manoeuvring laden trolleys. Why couldn't the entrance to the car park be off the roundabout, leaving the wired boulevard at the front exclusively for pedestrians? And Lord knows how you reach Newport's Asda on foot. As I approached Tesco, I headed for the zigzag path leading up from Brading Road. Having powered by my own legs, it seemed almost spiteful that at this final stage I had to make a slightly longer journey as a conceit of the landscapers. Many other walkers have disregarded the formal crooked path and forged a straight desire line through the ornamental shrubbery. Alas, since I last jinked my way cut through, a fence has appeared, blocking the improvised path to thwart insubordinate shoppers. But what's that? Mischievous humans have challenged their inner shrews and trampled a fresh direct line, snaking through the edge of the new fence. I followed suit, triumphant that people had won. Maybe next time I walk that way, the gorilla path will be formalised and the fence gone.
And now, public information. Sarah Burdett of the Isle of Wight Society is exploring the history behind the giant flag. The Columbine Shed in East Cowes sports the largest Union flag in the world. Built in 1935 by Bolton and Paul for Saunders Row, the shed was first used for building seaplanes. Orders for the RAF included the London, Lerwick, Walrus and Sea Otter during the Second World War. The shed covers 50,000 square feet, which is 4,645 square metres in area, and has some Art Deco features. Still only locally listed, despite several attempts to gain a national listing, the building is seen as an icon. So many innovative designs have emerged from those doors. The first jet seaplane, the SRA-1, made her first flight from here in 1947. She was nicknamed the Squirt by the skilled workforce employed by Saunders Row. The largest metal seaplane in the world emerged from the Columbine Shed, and the build was completed on the apron in front of the shed. This was the Princess, designed for cross-Atlantic travel or trips to Australia. She shares her 70th anniversary with our Queen, flying for the first time from the Solent on August the 22nd, 1952. Regrettably, the increased number of concrete runways near city centres saw the demise of the seaplane as a large passenger liner. Saunders Row was then given contracts to build rockets, as the company had experience designing jet fighter planes powered by rocket engines. By 1958, Black Knight was launched at Woomera in Australia, having undergone engine trials above the Needles. After 20 successful launches of these rockets, all built in East Cowes, the next design was the Black Arrow. This was a satellite launcher and successfully launched the first British satellite Prospero into space in 1971. Unfortunately, although we were ahead of the Americans, the British government decided there was no future in satellite launches and 2 days later cancelled the programme. In 1957, a new concept, the hovercraft, came to the notice of the government. First invented by Sir Christopher Cockerell, Saunders Row was tasked with building a seagoing version. Again, this happened in the Columbine Shed, and SRN-1 first took to the water on June the 11th, 1959. Many more hovercraft were designed by the firm and then flew down the ramp in front of the Columbine Shed on their maiden flights. The largest was the stretched Princess class of SRN-4 hovercraft. These craft saw service on the cross-channel car ferry route for 21 years. Hovercraft are still used extensively in difficult conditions such as tundra and frozen rivers, and over extensive sandbanks and shores such as ride sands, and as rescue craft for the RNLI in Morecambe Bay. Our Queen celebrated her Silver Jubilee in 1977. That year, the doors of the Columbine Shed were painted in the red, white and blue of our national flag in her honour, and 25 years later the flag had a repaint for the Queen's Golden Jubilee. This year, White Shipyard has provided a second large Union flag celebrating our Queen's Jubilee. Congratulations and celebrations.
And now it's What's On. And the first What's On is in Cowes bookshop, the Medina bookshop. Budding island writers will have the opportunity to pick up invaluable tips on the best ways to go about getting their books published. Medina Bookshop continues to encourage island writers with its How to Get Published talk with best-selling author Louise Voss. Having released 14 titles over her 20-year writing career, Louise has had books out via almost every publishing model, from deals with major traditional publishing houses to digital-only and self-publishing. The 7 p.m. presentation on Tuesday will take the form of an informal conversation with shop manager Paul Armfield, and there will be opportunities for the audience to ask questions. Paul says, "The island is such a hotbed of literary talent. Barely a day goes by without a customer revealing to me they've written a book. Who knows, there might be several potential best-selling authors in the audience on Tuesday, just needing that little nudge in the right direction. We hope so. Tickets are £6 from Medina Bookshop on Cowes High Street or www.medinabookshop.com.
And now Shanklin Theatre. Every Thursday from now until the 20th of October, it's Beyond the West End 2022 musical. Saturday the 28th of May, there's a group called Calabro. Friday the 3rd of June, the comedian Henning Vane. Saturday the 11th of June, the local Savoyards, Be Our Guest. Saturday the 25th of June, there's California Dreamers. And Sunday the 26th of June, the Simon and Garfunkel Story.
Curtain Up literally rise from the ashes to stage a 100th show. With 99 productions under their belt, at one point it looked uncertain if Curtain Up Amateur Dramatic Society would reach their 100th production planned for this year. The Society's flats, sets and costumes were destroyed in a fire at Totland, so future productions had to be scaled down. However, in true showbiz tradition, the show must go on. Producer Cheryl May said, "It's not easy rehearsing during an epidemic, and we have overcome quite a few hurdles along the way, but our wonderful cast have pulled out all the stops for our 100th production. With no set, we have focused on colourful costumes and props to set the scene and portray each decade, taking a nostalgic look back at the past 70 years of the Queen's reign. A Jubilee extravaganza, written by Cheryl May, pays homage to popular television programmes, songs and events. A fun look at the 1970s includes Sherbet Lemons and Bonbons, a comedy sketch about decriminalisation, and Rusty Bloomers, inspired by a well-known comedy classic. A Jubilee extravaganza is on Friday, May the 20th and Saturday, May the 21st at 7 p.m. at Freshwater Memorial Hall. Tickets can be purchased from the Cabin in Freshwater and the FYT shop in Totland. Tickets are £9 with local charities benefiting from the proceeds.
Now we come to the letters. Madison Wright of Newport says, cost of living, MPs should try budgeting in the real world. Rumour has it that Jam Tomorrow Tory MP Lee Anderson's new cookery book, How to Eat for 30p and Cook a Banquet for under £1, is expected to be available on tax-shy Amazon soon. It's bristling with great money-saving tips, like follow your local law-breaking Conservative MP, because they tend to only eat half a sausage and will discard the rest. If only we were all a little less feckless and learnt to budget. Culture Secretary Nadine Dorris is expected to launch new Kickstart cookery classes for those who are too knackered after a hard day's graft, holding down several minimum wage jobs, to roll up their sleeves and get into the kitchen. That said, I think I'll push the boat out this weekend and really spoil myself by spending 40p on a meal.
And this comes from Martin Carpenter. I have fond memories of my late father and a tale he told me about one of his experiences in the Second World War. Little did I know at the time that his story perfectly encapsulated how the British establishment serves to protect corruption in its ruling class. While serving as a sailor in the Middle East, he told me that it was the custom and practice for the lower ranks to be paid on the Friday of each week. But on this particular occasion, the purser chose to pay crew on the following Monday. Over the weekend, the exchange rate changed, leaving the lower ranks considerably worse off, while the purser made a financial killing. Feeling a strong sense of injustice, my father began the naval grievance procedure, where you formally complain to the officer above you. If you don't receive a satisfactory answer, you can go higher, eventually right up to the captain. But here's the rub. You never get to the captain, because long before that ever happens, you are transferred to another ship, where you have to restart any grievance from square one. My father was transferred from ship to ship, eventually serving on HMS Ajax, where he was promoted to be head of radar in the hope of buying his silence. That didn't work, and he was eventually transferred to a naval unit back on dry land in the UK. He never saw justice. The point is, the British establishment has always been geared up to protect the corrupt practices of its ruling class. Back in my father's day, it may have been a petty naval salary scam. Today we've seen the VIP fast lane surrounding multi-million-pound contracts for iffy PPE contracts, along with dodgy furlough payments and fraudulent pandemic grants, with zero commitments and the prospect of recovering any of this money stolen from the British taxpayer.
Kieran Headley of Seaview says, fish fingers to the Russians. As big brands like Birdseye, Young's and many major supermarket-owned brands, despite pledging a ban, are still selling produce made from Soviet white fish, shouldn't we, the consumers, be sticking two fish fingers up to the Russians and their fishing industry?
Alexander Hopkinson writes, I understand that Chris Parker thinks, that was in the County Press on the 29th of April, thinks that Brexit was not a good idea. Does that mean he thinks it right that we should still be a member of a group whose two most powerful members have financially supported Russia for many years and continue in effect to do so? However, the main reason for Brexit was to escape stultifying centralisation and bureaucracy. We need more innovation and less uniformity.
Penelope Baker of Lake says forward thinking is needed. Last week, the county press of the 13th of May featured various attacks on the half-term decision announced by Alliance Education portfolio holder Debbie Andre. Conservative members, now out of the Isle of Wight Council Cabinet power, failed to recognise the upheaval of the pandemic, just as they have ignored the shameful state of the Ocean Hotel in Sandown and buildings in Fitzroy Street, the latter within a minute's walk of their Conservative Club building. While Conservative councillors are desperate to hold on to mayoral office in Sandown, perhaps they would like to explain how they have left the Alliance-led council to take action on the Ocean Hotel. In the same week as the letters, I stood in front of the Ocean Hotel with tourists who have been regular visitors to the island over the years. Their words were how sad Sandown has become, and they told me they were staying in Yarmouth this time. So perhaps those who have held mayoral office for Sandown, including former Sandown Deputy Mayor Councillor Brading, an ex-education portfolio holder, whose rather petty letter was also featured, would like to explain why they have been more keen on personal ceremonial prestige than the reputation of Sandown as a holiday resort. I have every faith in Councillor Andre, as an Alliance member working cross-party, will encourage sustainable forward thinking into the island education system for the benefit of the young, who face a challenging future.
And for our last letter, this is from Elaine Hurst of Ventnor. I wholeheartedly endorsed Dennis H. Murphy's praise of the staff at St Mary's Hospital. That was in the county press on the 20th of April. I've been on kidney dialysis since the start of the year and thinking that the renal ward staff are marvellous. It's not exactly a barrel of laughs for the patients, who have to spend up to 4 hours per session hooked up to a dialysis machine 3 times a week. But this experience is made bearable by the staff, who are unfailingly courteous, considerable, highly professional and funny. Laughter is the most common sound on the ward. I also hope that when the staff go home at the end of the long shift, they can take comfort in knowing what a difference they have made to their patients. And with that, Imelda is going to just wish you all the best for the weekend and say goodbye.
And Kate is signing off. Goodbye.
In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that. Travelling in Touch. It could be about time to start planning that long overdue holiday, and whether you prefer to stay in the UK or go abroad. We have 3 experienced visually impaired travellers on hand to share their advice of making the most of a holiday. The North Wales Accessible Holidays for Blind and Visually Impaired is a charity run by Nigel Gary and his wife Karen. They can offer free, fully adapted, accessible caravan holidays. Nigel tells us about his charity and his own preferences to holiday within the UK. Nicola Nair is a Paralympian horse rider who has travelled far and wide, both alone and with family and friends. She tells us about her travel experiences, among them how she went about not making her young daughter feel the responsibility of being her guide. Rosie Flusky globe-trots with her husband Carl. They produce a travel blog called Flying Flusky to document their trips and to share travel tips and advice for people who perhaps don't feel confident to go overseas. The presenter is Peter White, the producer is Beth Hemmings, and the production coordinator is Liz Poole.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts. Good evening. Tonight we have a travel special for you, but it's not a list of special offers or hopeless access horror stories, although there are still plenty of those around. What we're interested in tonight is how to get the best out of your travelling if you are visually impaired, given the inevitable restrictions that poor sight or none at all imposes. Not seeing the view, not having all your familiar stuff around you, just not knowing where the heck you're supposed to be going. And also how to get the best out of it for yourself without ruining it for anyone sighted travelling with you who might end up feeling like an unpaid guide. Well, we've got 3 seasoned blind and partially sighted travellers to kick this around this evening. Rosie Flusky, who travels widely with her sighted partner and produces her own travel blog. Nigel Gary, who intriguingly, for a man on a travel programme, doesn't even have a passport. And Nicola Naylor, whose frequent solution to the problem of not spoiling it for everyone else is to travel alone. So one quick question for each of you to start with, starting with Nicola. What's the appeal of travelling alone, you know, given when there are so many potential pitfalls to it?
I suppose some misguided sense of independence, maybe. Or maybe just because I didn't always have the opportunity to travel with somebody. I have travelled with people and on my own, and it just depends what opportunity comes my way, really.
Right, well, we will come back to you on the travelling alone and travelling with other people. Nigel, why no passport? I have to ask you that.
To be honest with you, it's never really appealed to me, Peter. The furthest Karen and I have been has been Jersey and Guernsey. And going abroad has never appealed to me simply because, you know, I've been a guide dog owner for 41 years and I've just thought it's safe to stay on the British Isles. OK, and Rosie Flusky, tell me the idea behind the blog.
Well, I started Flying Flusky in late 2016. I work in travel and I deal with passengers day to day, and I realised I was giving them tips and tricks and telling them my travel stories. So it was partly to try and get those down in some sort of formal way, and partly because my husband Carl has a shocking memory and we've done so many amazing travels together, and I just thought it'd be really nice to have this all down on virtual paper. OK, here's just a snatch of the kind of thing that you might hear on Rosie's blog, this really philosophical debate between you and your husband on the streets of Italy.
So we've just finished a Pepe and Granny, and the big question is, Mr. Flusky, was it the best pizza in the world?
I think, without doubt, actually, it was the best pizza in the world.
I still don't know.
You're not sure?
No! The crusted sobilo was the best crust I've ever had.
But I really liked the toppings here, and I thought the crust was fluffy and cheesy.
So I'm going with the best overall pizza, but not the best crust. And you are going?
I'm going best pizza I've ever had.
I imagine, Rosie, you dig a bit deeper into the problems and challenges of travel than the quality of the pizzas.
I mean, the food is always very important, I think.
Yeah, right. So let's stay with you for a moment. You travel together a lot. What's the division of labour between you and your sighted partner? Who does what?
So I love travel research. I am almost as happy planning our holidays as I am when we take them. But I think as soon as we kind of leave the country, then I do slightly rely on Carl to be checking for signs or making sure I'm not walking through things that say no entry on pain of death. But yeah, I think I'm kind of the 90% of it until we leave, and then he's the 90% of it when we get there.
So what's the secret, basically, of getting the most out of travel without relying on him?
One of the things I use a lot is my phone. Obviously, it's amazing to have a small computer in our pockets. So it helps me email places ahead of time to ask how they do their access things. Do they have any discounts? Do they do touch tours? It's all that kind of forward planning. And then when we're away, downloading apps that will tell you when the next subway is coming, which platform it's going to and where it's going, especially in somewhere like New York where it can be quite confusing. That takes the power back into my hands to know what's going on as well, even if he is still doing it for his own benefit.
So has the smartphone rather revolutionised things for you then?
Oh my goodness, yes. I was a very confident child, a very confident teenager to just walk up to someone and say, can you be my eyes for a second? Can you tell me which platform the Brighton train's going from? But now I have that in my hand before I've even stepped off the tube into Victoria Station, which is, I think, really empowering.
But I do think that's interesting that you say that, because quite a lot of visually impaired people are still reluctant to ask for help, because I've always thought that the most useful thing you could possibly be taught is how to ask for help confidently, because I just think people don't mind being asked to help.
It is scary to rely on the kindness of strangers, but you'd be amazed, especially when you're travelling. People want you to have the best experience. They want you to enjoy wherever you're going, especially if they're local. And for example, we went to Sri Lanka, and in Sri Lanka, there are no big electronic boards. There are no handwritten things. It is just a bus number. And the number of people that said, of course, we'll show you to the right bus, and took us there. It was really incredible.
Are there any advantages for Carl of travelling with you, apart from loving you dearly, of course?
I mean, we both benefit from a discount or two. We've just discovered that Interrail, the passes that you can use to travel all around Europe on the train, allow a free carer. So I know that we can travel with someone who'll be able to get us on the right train, and he can go for half the price.
And have you sort of acquired skills over the years? Because you won't necessarily always enjoy doing the same things. That goes for any couple, but I mean, it's a bit more marked if you're visually impaired. For instance, I don't much enjoy trolling round art galleries.
Yeah, I've definitely felt that. The first time we went to the Sistine Chapel in 2008, you weren't allowed to use camera phones or cameras. And actually, the ceiling is really high. So I stood around for 10 minutes while he enjoyed it in the flesh. And then he stood around for 10 minutes while I looked at a big poster of it, because I could get a bit closer. The very obvious one is when we go and see nature. And he'll be going, oh, look at that beautiful robin. I'm like, small black blob. He'll say, oh, look at that eagle. And I'll be like, oh, big black blob. So it's things like that. It's compromise. Marriage is compromise. Travel is compromise.
Rosie, hang on there. We'll come back to you. But of course, not everyone has the resources to travel that widely or the confidence. And in the past on this programme, we might well have been talking about specialist holiday hotels for visually impaired people in this country. Now, for a variety of reasons, financial, philosophical, those are very thin on the ground. We've lost a lot of them in recent years. And it was this market that Nigel Garry was thinking of when he and his wife Karen set up a charity 5 years ago called the North Wales Accessible Holidays for Blind and Visually Impaired People. Bit of a mouthful. Nigel, tell me what it's all about.
There had sadly been a demise within the hospitality business for unfortunate blind and partially sighted people. And we decided to try something a little bit different in terms of self-catering caravans. And we set up our lovely flagship caravan on Lido Beach in Prestatyn. And once inside the van, we've got every conceivable piece of equipment. And this has become an advantage to a disadvantage, really, of me losing my sight at the age of 19. It's given me the opportunity to think what would be right and what beneficiaries would need within the caravan.
So who's eligible for this? Is it for anyone? Because you're aiming at a particular market in a way, aren't you?
Absolutely, Peter. Our criteria is you must be registered blind, severely visually impaired blind, or partially sighted. We offer absolute free breaks to blind adults, children and carers that are living on a limited and fixed income of benefits, and that's done by way of a means test. You mustn't have had a break within the last 3 years, but that is extremely hard for us to prove as a small charity. So we've got to take that on trust, really.
Now, even those who were providing specialist holidays were hit by COVID, of course, you included. I mean, what effect has that had?
A tremendous effect, but we have survived. How we did, I really don't know, because 94% of our income comes from community fundraising in terms of supermarket store collections. We did have some income from 1 or 2 trust funds that we wrote. But we were so lucky, Peter, in terms of we are run entirely by volunteers. No one is waged within the charity, so we've got no salaries to pay out.
Right, so what are your plans for the future now that COVID is, if not over, then at least, you know, in the phrase, we've learnt to live with it?
If, honestly, COVID hadn't have hit, we would have had a 3rd caravan now, believe you me. January, both vans were fully booked during the 6-week holidays with visually impaired children. So it proves there was a real need for our charity.
OK, now I want to turn to Nicola Naylor. I know you still do a lot of travelling, not least because you're a Paralympian horse rider, but just to concentrate first on this urge to travel alone. For instance, the lone trip you made to India many years ago, but not long after you'd lost your sight. What was the drive to do that?
I lost my sight just as I finished university, and many of my friends had gone off and taken gap years and done really exciting travel. Meanwhile, I was recovering in hospital thinking that actually life had come to an end. It was a tough time. And when I was back on my feet, really, I just thought, I want to go and do what all my friends have done. And there weren't really any available friends because said friends had then got jobs or got married or were doing other things. So there was only really one option, and that was to go alone. And that's what I did. And it was fantastic because I think what really resonates with me is a little bit what Rosie said, and that is that although I went with a spirit of independence and I went to go alone, what it really taught me was how valuable actually other people and a certain amount of dependency can be. And what I mean by that is that trip would have failed had I not been so supported and welcomed by the Indian people that I met out there.
So what effect has that had on you since as a traveller? You know, what have you taken into subsequent travelling where you've gone perhaps with other people?
I think a bit like you said, first of all, it is okay to ask. People are only too willing to help. They want to introduce their country to you. They want to introduce their culture and their family. And as a traveller, you, in a sense, as a blind traveller, I think I got a greater insight into India and its people because of that intimacy that I almost needed to be helped and introduced to people and culture. And so it gave me a greater insight.
Now, Rosie and Nigel have talked about travelling with partners. I know that you travelled with your daughter. There's a possibility you can turn your child into a visually impaired guide. I mean, I can remember 2 of my kids, one saying to the other one, I've had him for 20 minutes, you have him now. I wonder how you dealt with that.
Well, I've just gone one step back. I also travelled with my husband and we did a tandem ride where we cycled from Bangkok through Thailand, through Laos to Hanoi. I was on the back of the tandem, but at one point he got such severe cramp in his legs that I ended up on the front of that tandem with him moaning on the back, shouting left, right, straight. Actually, it sort of turned the tables because at that point, all I can say is he wouldn't have got to the other side of Laos if I not been cycling.
Right. But I know you travelled with your daughter, didn't you, when she was about 11, 12?
Well, I first travelled with Poppy. I took her to India when she was 9, and then I've travelled later with her when I was on my own with Pops. And it was tricky thinking, how do I create a holiday which is a real holiday and she's not just looking after mum? I joined up with some friends, actually, for that trip, and that worked really well because she was able to feel, well, mum's got friends, mum can go off and do X, Y, and Z. Therefore, she was free to do what she wanted to do. And within that journey, actually, we went to America and we took her about 5-6 days, just the 2 of us, getting a train and going down to New York. And then when we were in New York, it was fascinating because she was able to then start to take on board the fact that actually she had to do the map reading. So it was all very well me planning where we might go, but the actual, were we going to get on the right bus and could she navigate? I think it made her grow up, and I think she's a great traveller today as a result of that sort of experience.
It's actually quite interesting, this idea. You mentioned sometimes having sighted friends who you travel with. We had an interesting email, in fact, on this issue of sharing the load on holiday. We had this from a couple, Geraint and Sue, and they say,
once a year, we attend the Keswick Convention and hire a self-catering house that sleeps 10 or 11. Another friend comes with her guide dog and the other 7 or 8 friends are sighted. Some of them are excellent cooks. Also, each year we take over a 40-bed hotel at Grange-over-Sands for our group. We hire a coach for trips out and we have a free day for everyone to have an opportunity to do their own thing. On the free day, sighted people are on hand to help with transport and getting around, if needed.
So, quite a good example from listeners about the idea of spreading the load. I suppose the point is it's not so much the burden idea. I mean, in a way, I'm sort of quite aware of this at the moment because I've just come back from holiday. But it's things like driving, which, is a very arduous thing to do. And if you have a long drive at the end of the day and then you're unpacking the car, and I'm quite good at unpacking cars, but the trouble is it's not easy to unpack a car in an environment that you've never been in before. So it sometimes feels as if one thing that someone has to do is followed by another. If you're not careful, you can get a long stream of things that the person with some sight just has to do because it's the only way to do it.
I think driving is definitely the one that has held me back from doing certain kinds of trips, actually. Because obviously, if we're hopping on a train or a bus or a plane, we're at even Stevens. If Carl has to do a long road trip, he will get more tired than me. And my navigation skills, being visually impaired, can leave a lot to be desired. And I think it is probably the closest we've ever come to divorce is arguing in the car.
I want to bring in Nigel because, you rely quite a lot on Karen, don't you, for driving?
Oh, all the time, Peter. I just sit back and thoroughly enjoy it. But no, she is a star. And you know what, Peter? We've had beneficiaries come from as far as Devon and Cornwall. But just to ease the pressure on the sighted able-bodied person is we do a meet and greet service. One of the vans, it's so high-tech. We've got a touch screen and digital extractor fan, and I have made that for any totally blind person to be able to operate not only the fan, but the light as well. So I remember one couple when I said to his wife, look, you deserve a well-deserved break. You're on holiday. So if the husband says, I can't get up and put the extractor fan on, tell him he's lying because I've made it so he can.
Sounds to me like we need about a dozen of those caravans. 3 isn't enough. Can I just end by asking maybe just a couple of top tips? Nicola, what would you suggest?
Plan and organise.
Very neat and very brief. And Rosie?
As well as planning, email everybody. Email everywhere you're planning to go because you never know what they might be able to offer you, whether that's a free carer or if you ask nicely, maybe they'll let you step a little bit closer to this piece of art. You just never know.
Fantastic. And that is it for today. Do tell us your travellers' tales. And next week, more on the practicalities of travel, including the increasing cost of taking your guide dogs abroad and the erratic nature of announcements on public transport, especially trains. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338. Many thanks to Nicola Naylor, to Nigel Garry and Rosie Flusky for so many insights and a few rueful laughs. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Owain Williams and Carwyn Griffith. Goodbye.
This is Scaffolding and Skip News for the week beginning Monday the 23rd of May 2022. And for Newport, the Old Mill, St Cross Lane, 11 Lower Street, St James's. Lighthouse Medical Centre, 62 Crocker Street, Exchange House, St Cross Lane, Newport Minster, St Thomas Square, and Skips in Newport, 56 Albany Road.
Cows, Old NatWest Bank, 104 High Street. Cows Skips, Ivy Dean Princes Street and 63 Moor Green Road.
And Ryde, 24B Union Street, Friends of the Animals, High Street, Garfield Road, 21A and 22A, Cross Street, and the Crown Inn Pub, St Thomas's Square, High Street. And ride skips are at 21A and 22A, Cross Street.
Seaview, Villa Marguerite, High Street, Warren Boats, Blewett Avenue.
Brading, 65 High Street, 74 and 76 Lower Furlongs.
Sandown, 20 High Street.
Shanklin, Sunny Bay Flats, 2 Alexandra Road. And Shanklin skips are 1 Wilton Road and 12 Clarence Road.
Ventnor, 2 High Street, 24 Spring Hill.